You know, we've all been guilty of this. There's been somebody who's shown some interest in our partner and you've wanted to rip their heads off. Yes, today I am doing a video all about jealousy. What is it, first of all, and how does it affect our relationships? Hey y'all, my name is Kiri Sutras and I give sex and relationship advice with queer folk and BIPOC people in mind. And today we are talking all about jealousy. Exactly what is it? Why do we experience it? And how the heck can we try and move through that spaces so that we don't destroy our relationships? Oh, and if you stay tuned to the end, I'm actually going to tell you a story about my own real life versions of having to deal with it and some of the crazy stuff that it really created. So let's start at the beginning. What is jealousy? Well, for the most part, the experts believe that jealousy is a biological response. Once again, it was deep rooted in when we were coming up through our ancestral lines, and the idea of intimacy and love was integral to your survival. It's this guttural emotion that we feel, or it brings up a lot of different emotional spaces that we roll through. The idea of anger and possession and sadness and confusion, all of those elements wrap up into the feelings of jealousy. And basically, we get jealous because it's almost like a defense mechanism that we form because we want to keep our intimate relationships. Yeah, that's what it is. Now, jealousy is a painful thing. It's a painful emotion. It really embodies all of those negative feelings that we can have. Like I mentioned before, that feeling of being sad and anger and just, this drive to want to, it's not even really anger. It becomes that drive for wanting to just lash out sometimes. I know I've felt jealousy to that kind of an intensity. And it can make you clouded in the way that you think about things. You don't get further than what you've been feeling in that moment. All you can see is that your partner may not be paying attention to you, and it causes this deep unrest on the inside. It, at a minimum, has been about us wanting to build closeness, even though it seems to have the opposite effect. And there's an element of us feeling in competition with our partners, or creating this rival space with somebody else who has drawn in the attention of our partners. And funnily enough, it seems to be that men have a different directive for feeling jealousy versus how women react and feel jealousy. Not that we don't get the same emotion, it's just some of the triggers around what brings that emotion in is different depending on if you are male or male identified or female and female identified. There's differences in how we respond to that. It can be really complex. A lot of the times when we feel jealous, it almost forms like a preoccupation. And you can let me know if that has happened to you. Put it in the comments. I know that when I was going through my situation, I almost became obsessive, totally preoccupied with this idea that my partner could be involved with somebody else. And that seems to be a trait of when we are feeling jealous. It takes up so much of our time, our thoughts, and our ability to even function in some way. Men and women, though, express jealousy a little bit differently. David Boos, who is the author of the book, The Dangerous Passion, Why Jealousy is Necessary. And if you click the link below, I am going to have access to it from my Amazon link. You can click and buy the book. It was an amazing, really amazing read. David Boos talks about the differences that men have and what triggers them when they feel jealous versus what it is for women. Now, for men, a lot of the times their jealousy is triggered in that they want to make sure that their women stay I guess the word I'm going to use is dedicated to them. The idea that their biological line, because it's somewhere deeply ingrained. I mean, we're not, specifically coming forward and recognizing this, but for men, they don't want to be looking after offspring that is not theirs. So it's very important for their women or to stay faithful to them. And this, once again, comes back from our ancestral lines. When we were evolving and when we were going through the evolutionary stages, it was important to make sure when the world was harder to keep family together. It would be very important, when we were hunters and gatherers, to have to create some surety about whose was whose. So that for men is very important. They don't want to be saddled with the responsibilities of looking after someone else and somebody else's child. And so that idea of passing on our genetic material and being, the king of their pride is important. For women, it's actually about, once they've had those children, making sure that their man ain't going nowhere, because we understand from a very innate space, once again going back into that evolutionary line when we were evolving, how tough it is to raise children without having a provider, a protector, and another set of eyes on them children. It takes a lot of work to raise kids to come up, and it's important to have that unit, or it helps anyway to have a unit that helps you raise your children in a happy and healthy way. So if by chance your mate starts looking at somebody else that may be of interest to them, it triggers that sense of innate abandonment that we can have, and also some of those attachment styles that can be associated with it. And that brings me to this point. The bottom line is that jealousy feels like shit, and it actually destabilizes a relationship and reduces kind of like your mate quotient. And what I mean by that is it actually can really push your partner away versus then drawing them together. So when we start feeling jealous, it's important for us to have to start to look within. So how do we deal with jealousy? Key tip when we are feeling that way is to do something that makes you feel more lovable, because what jealousy brings up makes you more unlovable. As we are evolving and society is switching so rapidly, there's much more equality that's happening between women and men on a financial level. Our needs are different, actually. We're not going out there and being hunters and gatherers, and the detriment is that there could be, some sort of wild animal that could tear us apart in any moment. It's changing how we are being in relationship, yet we still have these old primal factors that trigger the spaces of our relationships. It's very important then, as we are talking about what we can do about jealousy, is to really come into a self-awareness about what that is causing. First off, normally jealousy is an indicator of what is happening in the relationship, but it's a very strong indicator of what's happening with you. If you are willing to take that look within and really go past just what you are perceiving your partner is doing, you can also take a look at what it's making you feel like, and that will give you the core. A lot of the time, it's triggering a sense of abandonment, or it might make you feel like you somehow aren't as adequate as the person your partner may be chasing, or maybe you have caught your partner's eye, because perception is a lot when it comes to being jealous. Sometimes our perceptions can be off. What I mean by this is that it might be a good chance for you to take a look at what you are going through. Are you feeling this sense that he can't love me because this person feels lighter and stronger and bigger than I am? Are you feeling that she might be interested in this other person because, that person is, got a wider chest than me. If those are coming up, we have to look at how and what we need inside that's going to switch up our ability to recognize that we are not inadequate to what we are perceiving the threat to be. It might be a chance for you to do some inner work, to really go in and bolster yourself. What are your interests that are outside of your partner? What is it that maybe you need to look at that will bolster the space of the relationship? Because sometimes we can be jealous, not at just somebody else, but maybe your partner has taken on a new hobby, like, started playing music, and that wasn't a part of the relationship that you had before, and they're spending a lot of time there. So you're starting to feel insecure because they're putting attention other places. It's a good opportunity to look at maybe one, the quality of time that the two of you are spending, and what is the threat that you're feeling because there's an other interest that's happening. Is it maybe that you yourself may be feeling unfulfilled? You yourself may want to look at doing something that's going to make you feel better, because ultimately when we sit in jealousy, it's an indicator that we have an opportunity to look at things in a different way. And maybe what's actually happening is that when we are approaching our partners from a space of neediness versus wholeness, and what I mean by that is we know that our partners can't meet our every single need, that they are supposed to be an absolute complement enhancement, but we've got to come forth at the table. This is the time that you get to look at that. A great other tip to help with creating a new space when we're going through jealousy, because normally if we're jealous, there's a lot of disruption in the relationship, is to look at getting a coach or a therapist. This is a time, and I want to really talk about this, where we're finally recognizing how important it is to get some help around being in relationships. I often say that we talk about, being able to go to school when we want to learn math or we want to get a new career. But there's something where we don't talk enough about being in partnership, and we just are expected to know. Well, the truth of it is we don't always know. We do need help. And especially when you want to partner with somebody with longevity and with wholesomeness, it's going to be a work in progress at all times. When we are going into jealousy or we start to feel those emotions, it's a good indicator that we need to stop, take stock, and reassess so that we can create our truth. I'm hoping that this talk about jealousy gets you thinking a little. I'm hoping that this talk about jealousy really makes you reassess some things maybe. And I so appreciate you staying this far along. And if you have, I really want to say thanks. Like and subscribe to my video, because it is so important that we get to spread these messages, and I so enjoy this time that we get to vibe together. It really makes me know that we are connecting in a real way, and if you hit the bell, you'll get these messages every single time that I post one of these, which I do every Wednesday and Friday. If you have stayed on this video for this long, I really gotta just thank you. And let me tell you a little bit about my own experiences with jealousy. I mean, I get this from a very real space. I remember, and I'm not proud of this. In fact, I owe this person an apology. No matter where you are in the world, I am so sorry for how I acted. I was 17 years old and I was pregnant. That's a part of my story. I got pregnant at a very young age. And one of the things that happened was that I actually found out that my partner had put some attention. Okay, let me just be honest, gotten involved with another chick. And I rolled out. I literally rolled out with my crew, with my friends, and we went to confront this chick. So imagine me, I was a skinny little pregnant girl, and I'm confronting this other young woman. She was probably, I think she was a year younger than me actually. She was probably 15 or 16. And I went up to her and confronted her about being with my baby daddy. Yeah, it was one of those messy baby daddy experiences. I, in fact, ended up, let's just say, I neither confirm or deny that it might have gotten a little bit physical until my girlfriends pulled me off of her because I was pregnant at the time. So when I look back at that experience and the high emotions that I was running through, I had directed so much of my own pain and anger that I was feeling onto this poor young woman who, yes, she was involved with my man, but she had no idea that I had been involved with my man. In fact, the anger was so misplaced. When I see myself now, I'm a whole lot older and wiser, but I also recognize how it was a really traumatic time in my life, period. I was still dealing with the shame, the newness, of being pregnant for this person, and that I wasn't equipped, neither were they, for this experience of bringing new life into the world. Our relationship was obviously not very mature, and I just, I instead of being able to deal with him, I took it out on her. And it's always been something that I look at now, because when I feel into it, when I look at it, I realize that it was about all of the inadequacies that I felt like. One, I couldn't meet his needs sexually anymore because I was pregnant. Two, that I shouldn't have been meeting his needs at all sexually because I ended up pregnant. Two, how my self-worth was tied into being with him and not knowing that I was selling myself so short because I felt that now that I had his child, he had to be with me. And also just the naivete of being a young woman, thinking that I could have this, watched a lot of Disney story of us being this big happy family, not taking into account what it really takes to be able to build love, relationships, and family. And yes, I mean, the girl never talked to me again. It became a huge drama. I mean, my partner and I absolutely had one big kickoff, and truly it was like the third time I had caught him in that space. Maybe one of these days I'll do a video about how that really works, cheating men and understanding the signs. Trust me, I am a cheat man expert. I've got a cheat dar. I get cheating. But I recognize that a lot of that jealousy space was so about my inadequacy space. That's why these tips and understanding jealousy is important if you want to move on and move through and solve it for yourself. I ended up, as that experience went on, having to do a lot of work about myself. It was the beginning of that understanding. It was a long journey though, and I can't even say that I didn't have even more of those experiences. But that's for another talk. Stay tuned for the next video, because that next video we're going to be talking about real tips that you can use to help fight your whole space of jealousy. And if it's something that's been coming up for you often, what is really going on, and tips that you can use personally to battle it. Thank you so much for staying on this long, for being a part of this video, for really just tapping in and being willing to feel what it's like. Know that it's such a common thing. We go through jealousy often, and it's okay. It's an indicator that you can change it and strengthen the relationship you have with your partner. Till next time, I'll see you then.